Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us on Carrot CD News. I guess all of you are probably watching whatever else is on the channel right now, I guess. Okay. Anyway, so thanks for joining us today. We have a couple of stories for you guys. So why don't we start with Andrew Yang. So Andrew Yang has recently, in the last couple of weeks, started a third party, kind of. I don't know if I'd call it a third party as much as I call it a PAC, but here's his. This is from Dave Weigel. He says, these are the 6 planks of the Forward Party: ranked choice voting and open primaries, fact-based governance, human-centered capitalism, effective and modern government, UBI, and grace and tolerance. So
it's funny because ranked choice voting actually hurt him in New York City, right? So like it's kind of funny that he's actually promoting it now.
Well, you have to be, if you're a third party, you have to be in favor of ranked choice voting.
Right, but it's kind of funny because it actually did hurt him.
Oh, it did. So
didn't Pete Buttigieg or something, I mean, also mention about something about starting a third party? Is this like a trend now?
Maybe he did, yeah. But,
you know. Because I'm not sure. Like we were saying before, I mean, he's not putting up, his own candidates. He basically said that he's just going to support candidates, and this is kind of things that he likes, which we already know since he ran for president and for mayor of New York City. We kind of know, his platform and what he likes, or what he believes in. It's kind of odd for him to be opening a third party, don't you think?
I think so. I think he's going to actually, I don't know, I think he's kind of a joke, and I think he's going to hurt the other third parties by doing this in a lot of ways.
He's going to hurt the third parties. I do think he's kind of making himself into a joke. After some point, you kind of just take a step back, right? And you say, like, I'm not going to keep putting things out there. I'm going to, like, rethink my strategy and what I want to do. He's just kind of, let's make up a third party now, and not even put up our own candidates.
Yeah. Nobody, he ran for mayor in New York. Nobody a lot of the New York City, a lot of the progressives, we were excited about Andrew Yang, and then he changed his policy platforms 30 times while he ran for mayor.
Right. And I feel like now should be his time to like take a step back and say, okay, why didn't I win the mayor race when I had so much name recognition? What went wrong? Why didn't people like me? Why did people turn away from me? Kind of reevaluate that and then come back and be like, okay, I've learned what I've learned from my past experiences, and now I'm going to go forward and create a better platform or future, or, whatever his goal is, instead of just kind of saying, all right, now I'm going to create a third party with no reason at all. Just these are my platforms and these are the things I believe in.
Exactly. And if you're a third party who's endorsing Democrats and Republicans, you're really not a third party.
Yeah, he's kind of, I honestly don't know his agenda, right? When he first came out, I actually, I was a little bit on the fence with those people who said, he's kind of just out there he wants name recognition because he's a businessman, right? So he wants name recognition and he kind of wants to get out there, which I was like, okay, he's kind of trying to do the Trump thing of, getting more name recognition. He has a company and products to sell. Maybe he'll use that avenue for networks. And then, he ran for mayor of, New York City. And I was like, okay, maybe he's just a sort of loser, or maybe he has an avenue he wants to, exploit or expand within New York City that he wants to grow. And maybe he thinks he has a potential to win, which a lot of people did. And now it's like, well, I just don't see the purpose in creating a third party if you're not actually going to be a third party. Like function as, an ideal third party would be. If you're not going to be, create the third party that should exist, I don't see why you would open one.
Exactly.
Do you think this is his downfall? Do you think he's actually, do you think this is going to be anything? Do you think this is his savior, his thing that's kind of, going to take him away? Or do you think like this is going to knock him down and just, he's going to get lost in this?
This is project number 4 he's created since he's lost the presidency. First, he's endorsing congressional candidates and city council candidates. He created an entire organization that does that. Then he created Humanity Forward, some kind of nonprofit or company. Now he's created a third party. He's used his run for president in order to create all these organizations.
But has he done anything with them?
He's hired a whole bunch of people onto the nonprofit, to my knowledge.
Well, I guess that helps with unemployment. But yeah. I mean, otherwise, has he actually done anything? I see a message on the bottom of the screen. I don't know what that does.
So Holly Horn here says, I think Yang wants attention.
I think you might be right, but I think he's kind of like going about it in a really awkward way. You know, as opposed to like, you know, a lot of people are blaming Trump for wanting attention, but you know, he actually, maybe he did, but he did become president in the end and kind of, you know, created something from it. I feel like Yang is going about it in a really awkward way, unless he's just desperate for any kind of attention, which Holly, you might be right on that, because I can't see another avenue for this. And he seems like a business guy, so he would have a business mind. I just don't see it here.
Maybe he used it to launch all these organizations. He didn't have the name recognition before, and now he does. So now we can launch a bunch of organizations. Yes, a businessman can do fundraisers, and if a businessman starts a nonprofit, if he's a well-established businessman, he can do it. But if it's a businessman who ran for president and who everybody
and with the with this third party that he's opening, I think we saw that it actually functions like a PAC, right? Like it's not really a third party. I think he's pretty much just using this as a PAC to fund certain candidates that he wants and kind of, you know, give them his platform to be able to use as much money as, you know, they want to spend on the candidate and just say it's, you know, for the party with the platform. So he might be using it for that. And just us has, you know, it affects his business somehow that we don't know. Maybe, you know, it affects his side dealings.
Probably, but
it's kind of a loud attention-seeking way of doing it.
Exactly. But if he's running his own company, plus Humanity Forward, plus the Forward Party, plus his endorsements of candidates thing, isn't his attention going to be extremely divided? He's not going to be able to give every one of these things the attention it deserves, and they're probably
unless these are just his ways to get what he wants, right? If he might, this party that he's opening might not actually be a party because it doesn't seem like it is, and it might actually just be an avenue for him to fund candidates, you know, and kind of maybe create deals with them that way. Because I mean, if you have a party, right, we know the amount of money that you can get and spend is different than, you know, if you were an individual private entity or something else.
That's true. He may be using this to fund his candidates, and he's going to use his other organization to endorse the candidates officially. So they get 2 endorsements from Yang, I don't know, and 1 comes with money.
I mean, it's not a bad deal. You know, I imagine he's getting something on his end from it. But it's funny because a few years ago, you know, not too long ago, we only thought he was doing this for attention for his business. And now he kind of seems to have taken a whole new avenue for it, which, you know, I hope it works out for him. Good for him. But I don't think he will actually in the end be affecting any policy, honestly.
Probably not. But
or at least affecting any, you know, larger scale policy that we talk about.
No, exactly. He's going to make a lot of noise. And he's probably annoying all the people who are actually trying to do third parties right now.
Probably. Although you need a certain amount of votes. I guess he has enough friends or, you know, whatnot.
Exactly.
To kind of, we'll probably keep that alive.
Exactly. Let's go ahead to the next story. So, we have, hang on, I gotta pull up a clip. So we have the Facebook, there's a whistleblower, there's something going on there. Let's take a look.
Explosive new allegations this morning from a Facebook whistleblower.
Facebook over and over again has shown it chooses profit over safety.
Frances Haugen, a former Facebook employee, coming forward publicly for the first time on 60 Minutes. She says after the 2020 election, but before the January 6th riot at the Capitol, Facebook turned off internal safety settings meant to combat the spread of dangerous misinformation. Some of the rioters used Facebook and other social media networks to rally support for the insurrection.
As soon as the election was over, they turned them back off, or they changed the settings back to what they were before to prioritize growth over safety. And that really feels like a betrayal of democracy to me.
Haugen, armed with tens of thousands of documents from when she worked at the company, points to a 2018 change to Facebook's algorithm, which determines what specific content shows up on your feed. She says since more people click on posts that make them angry, the algorithm incentivizes hateful and divisive content.
Facebook has realized that if they change the algorithm to be safer, people will spend less time on the site, they'll click on less ads, they'll make less money.
Facebook now launching an intense defense.
A sweeping assertion that the violence that happened on January the 6th can be explained by social media is a woeful simplification of the much wider divisions in society.
An internal Facebook memo obtained by NBC News says while the company rolled back some of its emergency measures after the 2020 election, it kept others in place. And a company spokesperson says to suggest we encourage bad content and do nothing is just not true.
Since 2016, we've spent $13 billion on safety and security. We have 40,000 people working on safety and security. And I've seen the constant iteration on product and improvements that we've made along the way.
Haugen has filed a whistleblower complaint with the SEC, and she will testify in front of senators at a hearing here tomorrow. She says she hopes to encourage new, tougher regulations on Facebook. Savannah.
Good for her. You know, I mean, it's funny when I was, if you see that comment from Facebook that they responded, and I'm not a lawyer, but you know, once in a while I enjoy kind of, you know, nitpicking on things that companies say, because you know that lawyers put them out and you know that they thought about every word beforehand. You know, when they said suggesting that they do nothing about safety is not true, like that's your response? Because like, we're not saying you do nothing about safety. We're saying you did something wrong. We're saying that you specifically turned down safety measures that you would have had up otherwise for this incident. And, you know, I mean, it's not beyond them, you know, to say that. And it's funny because previously when we had whistleblowers in the previous administration, they were like all over the news. And, you know, I mean, I know we heard about, you know, this whistleblower and stuff, but I don't see it all over the news as much as, you know, former whistleblowers were in the previous administration.
Definitely.
And, you know, that could be like a product of Facebook, you know, that could be a product of, you know, kind of the media now, but it's, I mean, I wouldn't put it past Facebook, right? Like, of course, the legal courts have to, you know, go through all the documents and stuff, and we only receive the news, but, you know, to see if what part of it is true and what's not. But I mean, I wouldn't put it past Facebook to do what she said that they did, right? I mean, they obviously have all the information. It kind of does seem weird for them to turn off their safety measures right before the attack. And it is, I mean, knowing Facebook and how they've been working, especially during the Trump administration, they have been putting kind of, you know, from what we've seen and from what we've experienced at the very least, they have been putting measures to prevent the spread of Republican or, you know, right-wing centered information, you know, or at least that has been the dialogue that people have been experiencing. So it kind of seems odd that they would change that.
I don't think Facebook should put in any safety measures to do any. Well, I do think they need safety measures for specific things when people are inciting violence or when people are
child rape, things like that. Yeah, I totally agree with all of it. Like actual safety, right?
Exactly. If somebody's putting, like, for example, if I were to put a post with your name, your address, your phone number, and all that, that should definitely be taken down and my account should be flagged.
Yeah.
But if I'm just putting, I think that I don't like the mayor, I don't think that's any of their business.
Right. But you know what I really hope to come out of this, and I hope the administration takes it seriously, because I do know that the Trump administration was at the very least trying to hold Facebook and these other social media companies accountable for their actions. I do really hope what comes out of this is that Facebook is held accountable. I don't know if what they did, you know, was wrong, or if they did this, or, you know, if all the details were right or not. But the fact of the matter is, Facebook does have a lot of power right now, and they seem to be having the mindset that they're invincible. And I think that's dangerous. And I think that's dangerous to the American people. You know, when you come out or actually globally, right? Facebook is not just in America, but when you come out and you have so much power and you're not held accountable, I mean, the sky's the limit on what you do or what you don't do. And I think not just necessarily, you know, canceling people or blocking people or canceling information, but the information that you do put out, right? What is that? The information that you put out there. I know I believe in a different hearing, she was saying that, you know, Facebook, their algorithms affect the way little girls view themselves, right? Their body image. And I think they have so much power, and they need to have someone come at them and say, you know what, you don't have an unlimited span of what you can do. There are rules, and you can't hurt people, and you can't play around with people.
Exactly. As So my biggest thing is I think Facebook needs to be treated, and Twitter and Instagram and all these other ones need to be treated like the public square, where the First Amendment will apply. However, it's the same thing
Mhm.
where you cannot shout fire in a crowded movie theater. You cannot threaten or hurt people and do things. That's where the exceptions would be. You can say whatever you want as long as you don't.
There's no direct damage from it, right?
Exactly. So
I can say I hate whoever I want. I can, spit out false information to the public. I mean, we live in New York. Go to Times Square. How much of that is fake?
Yeah.
Right? All of those people dressing up, charging you $14 for a picture. If anyone listening is not from New York and you go to Times Square and they charge you $14 for a picture, you don't need to pay $14 to take a picture with someone dressed up in a costume, right? There's false information everywhere. But the fact of the matter is, it's your education that determines how, what you take in as false information and what you want, what you take in as true information versus false. I agree with you. I think at this point they should just be a public square. Whether they benefit from it or not, I don't know. But at this point, I think they should be a public square and do what they want with it. Or the other option is that they're not a public square, but they're responsible for all the ramifications of their actions.
Exactly. Now, here's the other thing. I don't think you should just be able to throw somebody off of Facebook. For example, let's go to Alex Jones. He got thrown out of all social media. I don't agree with a lot of the things he said. I think he's a little bit off when it comes to certain things. But I do think that should have been handled. A case like that should have been handled publicly. I think they should have publicly put out the reasons why he is being thrown off. I think it should have been some kind of trial or something like that. And I think that they should have been like, okay, well, it's this, and it's this specifically.
Right. You can't just kick someone out of a public sphere unless they're doing something illegal.
And
right?
you need to show it. Like,
Right.
There's a lot of there was not a lot of backlash on that one because a lot of people wanted him kicked out. But here's the thing that I always say: if you advocate for censorship on one side, you're going to get censorship on all sides. It's not going to stop at where you are. So.
And if Facebook wants to play police, that's fine. But I mean, police officers need a warrant before they search something, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't just come to a conclusion in a second and your account is down, right? You know how many people their account is down like that and they're on whatever social media or texting they can find telling people, help, my account is down. They have no control over that. There's nobody to talk to. It just went like that. There was no process for them to defend themselves in.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's really bad. And I mean, we see Facebook taking part in the whole cancel culture idea. And, I don't support the idea of canceling people. But, I just think, honestly, I know Trump tried to hold him accountable. I don't see that same initiative in this administration with Biden, but I do see action being taken, right? So I don't see it in like the headlines or the talks, but at least with this whistleblower and the action that's going on now, I do hope that there is kind of what I see as action being taken. I do hope that they are going to take action because there were some things that honestly were bipartisan, right? Like, I mean, the whole idea with bringing our troops out, that what Trump agreed and Biden agreed, right? So I just hope that with this Facebook idea, Trump and Biden both had the same idea that we're going to protect the American people and we're not going to let them be taken advantage of.
I'm going to be honest, I don't think Biden knows what Facebook is.
Well, he has a son, right? I feel like his son would know it.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone's going to tell him. His wife, honestly, probably knows. She seems pretty, sharpened with it.
Exactly. Normally, I wouldn't say that because, you see, like Bernie Sanders knows what Twitter is because he does his own tweets sometimes, and we know that. And Trump knows what Twitter is because he does his own tweets sometimes.
Bernie Sanders knows what Twitter is. I'm sure he knows what TikTok is, but that's because he spends so much time with people. He spends so much time on college campuses. He talks to people. That's how he knows it.
I don't think
see Biden doing that.
I don't think that Biden uses social media either. So
yeah, all Biden's friends, his whole cabinet, right? They all kind of seem like older men like him, right? Like he doesn't really seem to span
I think
American reach that Sanders did. I mean, Sanders' whole team was young people. Those were, he had diversity.
And they relied heavily on social media, where Biden's campaign did not rely heavily on social media at all.
Yeah.
So I think the way Biden's social media team works is they over prepare a written statement and then they send it to whoever and then they press post. I really don't think that.
Have you read any of their executive orders? It's like the top is kind of like just general blurb of like, this is nice, like here's like kind of the things that we support, and then just like very vague points, and it's just like, he didn't write it, but it's cringy. Like that's kind of the feeling I get from like reading.
Well, it's written by, they probably just take what's on a statement, they shrink it down so it'll fit on a tweet, so it has the right amount of characters, and then they post it. They probably don't put any thought into it.
His content is I cringe when I read it. It's
exactly. I think that's
at least Trump's was comedic, right? Like at least his had that value of like you laughed at it. This is just like you cringe.
I think Trump's had the comedic value. I think Bernie's had the different. Like,
Bernie's had the energy.
Exactly.
Like Bernie's had that energy that you wanted to feel. Exactly. Like he had that energy, that community that you wanted to feel, and you felt a part of that when you were reading his stuff and kind of going into his world.
I don't feel anything when I read a Joe Biden tweet.
I cringe. I honestly cringe. It is so cringeworthy.
Let's see. So I'm looking at a Biden tweet from 4 hours ago right now. It says, "A promise I didn't take lightly, and I have no idea what this is." They show a little video of him talking to a little girl and something about a monument. I don't even know what this is about. It seems to be about a monument, but I can't even. And then he's got one. "Our plan to accelerate the path out of this pandemic is working." Like, and there's a video.
So cringeworthy. It's like, do you think we're stupid enough to eat into this? Like, do you think we're happy with this? It's so cringeworthy. It's degrading in a way because it's insulting that he thinks that, or anyone on his team thinks we're so easy, right? Like you can just throw out anything and we'll eat it and we'll take it. But it's cringeworthy.
How about this one? "We're making real progress for the American people."
Well, that's funny. At least there's sarcasm in that one, right?
And then they just play some random videos. It looks like they just clip out videos and pick random quotes to go with these videos.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly.
Let's go ahead to our final. Unless you don't mind, we have 3 stories. I'm gonna throw one in here, and we'll do one really quickly.
Yeah.
Okay with that?
Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay. So I covered this one already, but I want to see what you think. So there's an election in Georgia for governor.
Okay.
This woman, she's part of the Liberation Party. She got on the ballot. They invited her to the debate, but they didn't give her the kind of invite you'd think they'd give her because she's a candidate on the ballot. They gave her an invite to sit in the audience.
I heard about that.
So she walks into the debate, and this is what transpired. I'm going to play a few seconds of it here.
You will lose. You will lose because of your behavior, because of the Democratic Party. I will not back down, and I will not go anywhere. We want to talk about police crime and talk about how we need to talk about the wide area. We must get to the wide area where they cause these continuously rising crimes in our neighborhood. It is absolutely ridiculous, and I am the only candidate that represents the fight seriously for the working class. And that's the new spirit at the end of it, and you can get out of my street. Thank you. You can get out of my street.
She's on the ballot.
We will
end the
ballot pipeline. I will defend our trans students. You are touching me, and you might want to get up off of me. Thank you. You can call me what you want, but the reality of it is, I'm educated, and I have to travel from Middle Peninsula all the way up to Alexandria because people are not paid professional wages. That's a 3.5-hour drive, is what I had to do. Again, I will fight for working class Virginia. You must want to get off of me. You are now assaulting me. Get off of me. You are assaulting me. Do not touch me. Again, I am on the ballot. Why am I not on the stage? Why am I not on the stage? Glenn, you said that I have the right to be up on the stage. Why aren't you fighting to be up on the stage? This is not democracy. It is censorship. It is racist is what.
So,
Good for her. You know, honestly, as I was watching that, I was like genuinely proud of her, and I don't even know her. And I mean, good for her. You know what? That's entirely rude. That even if there was a mix-up, right? Let's say there was a mix-up, and what was going through my head is, you know, always trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? Maybe there was a mix-up, and maybe they accidentally didn't send it to her, or she read, you know, filled out the wrong form, right? Like these things could happen. That's very possible. But the fact of the matter is, once she gets there and you find out that she's a candidate, you put her up there. You put her up on the stage and give her a seat. It's not that complicated to do, right? They obviously didn't do it, but it wasn't that hard for them to do. And I think good for her that she stood up for herself. Like, honestly, I hope this video goes viral and people find out about her and vote for her. Because one, she has the guts to stand up for herself and stand up for what's right. And you know that carries over, you know, when someone can stand up for something, that carries over into standing up for other people. But it's like, I mean, honestly, just being mistreated that way, and all those other people on the stage who didn't say anything. I mean, no other candidate got up and said, oh, you know, we should give her a seat, or at the very least say, you know what, I believe this is wrong, that this shouldn't take place, and I will give her my seat because of that, right? Like, nobody did that. And it's just like, honestly, the rest of the candidates, I don't know them and I haven't looked into them, but the fact that they didn't do that just kind of makes me think that maybe they shouldn't be the ones voted in, maybe she should be.
Definitely, yeah. This actually got her press attention. They weren't covering her.
I don't know her policies at all, right? Maybe I completely don't agree with her policies, but I just think on this one action, I think that it was entirely wrong, and I am very impressed and proud of the way she acted.
Definitely, yeah. She didn't get any press coverage up until this event. She's the first African-American woman to ever make it onto the ballot in Georgia ever, and they didn't cover it on the news. Of course, they didn't get any coverage because she's running with the Liberation Party, which is a newly formed party. So as soon as this debate was, as soon as she exited the debate, there were like 30 reporters ready to take her statement, and she finally got a news story.
Good for her. Wow. Good for her. I hope she gets something good out of this. I don't know, you know, if our system right now is in place for her to, you know, win the seat because of this, or, you know, whatnot, but I hope she gets something good out of this, because it's just not right. I don't know if we can even do anything, you know, to kind of prevent these things, that these are like actions of individuals that are just wrong. And, you know, you can set legal precedents and you can say this is illegal and not, but then there's just a certain sense of morality and decency and, you know, ethics that kind of, you know, on a very general level, you really can't tell someone to be a good person and, you know, make that a crime not to be a good person. And so, you know, if this was just a mistake on someone's part, right, it would have just been the right thing to do to put her on stage, or for some candidate to get up and say, I will have her sit with me, next to me, I will stand, right, whatever it takes, this is the right thing to do. And, you know, I don't think you can make it illegal for people not to do the right thing, but I do think more people should do the right thing, and I wish there was something that we can do in place to kind of make this right, and so that it doesn't happen again. Because I know it happens. I'm sure it happens a fairly frequent amount to candidates of all different races, all different, you know, genders, all different sizes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely does. So, last one we're probably going to disagree on a little bit, but that's fine. So we're going to talk about Columbus Day.
Is Columbus Day the last one that we're going to disagree on?
Probably.
Okay.
So if you want to go first, and then I'll go ahead.
That's with the changing the name, right? They were talking about changing they want to call it Indigenous Day and not Columbus Day.
Well, yeah, Indigenous Peoples Day, yeah.
Indigenous Peoples Day, I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, so my perspective on this is, right, I entirely support diversity and inclusion and renaming and, you know, acknowledging our history and the people who were there beforehand, right? I mean, when we're talking about Cuomo changing the bridge, the name of the bridge from Tappan Zee Bridge to whatever his family's name is, I was appalled. I was disgusted by the fact that this is the Tappan Zee Bridge, right? So there were two components of it. One, it's something that people have been accustomed to the Tappan Zee Bridge in our area has become the name of our bridge, right? You're now telling us that we have to call it by your family, by your father, but our name, the name that we hold dear to our hearts, the way that we've known since childhood, the sentimental name that we have for it is the Tappan Zee Bridge. So telling us to change that is just basically disrespecting us and what we have in our town, in our, you know, in our county. And so it's like the same thing with, and then it was the other idea of, you know, the Indians who lived here before us was the Tappan, I think they were the Tappan tribe, right? So it was it had historic value to it, and it kind of made you think of, you know, the Tappan Zee. There were Native Americans here, indigenous people were here before us, and that's beautiful to know that they had that land before us, and you can kind of think about that. And so the whole idea of, you know, changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, it's the idea of like, Christopher Columbus was the one who came over the ship into America, right? And I understand the idea of diversity, but on the same note as, just like I wanted to keep the Tappan Zee Bridge named as the Tappan Zee Bridge for, you know, the people who the bridge was named for, it's the same idea for Christopher Columbus. Like, the day was named for him and for what he did. Why are we taking that away? I understand we have to acknowledge the indigenous people entirely, and I'm completely on board with that, but maybe have another day for them, right? Like, this day is Christopher Columbus's day, and yes, he may not have done everything correctly, but there are some things that he did that we can definitely acknowledge, like coming over to America and starting the whole spiral of us being here, right? Like, can we not, what's wrong with acknowledging that and accepting that and appreciating that? I don't understand it.
Definitely. So I disagree a little bit. Now, my big issue is not whether we have Columbus Day or not. I would probably be fine keeping it and giving us Indigenous Peoples Day a different day. My big issue is
more holidays.
Exactly. My big issue is what they teach in schools about Christopher Columbus. I'd rather them teach the full story about what actually happened and not gloss over any of the gruesome details, because there are gruesome details in that story. There are the parts where he discovered America. Not discovered, well, was one of the people to come over. He wasn't the first one to discover it. But I think they need to tell the full story. When I was in elementary,
your school not?
I was in elementary school. You know what they told me? They told me that Christopher Columbus was the first one ever to come to America. It was written in my textbook that Christopher Columbus was the first person to come to America to discover it, and that he was the only one who believed the world was round and all this other stuff. There's some misconceptions. It was actually, he disagreed with the size of the world with Queen Isabella, and he thought it was a lot smaller than it was. It wasn't that he was the only one who believed it was round. There's a lot of misconceptions written in my history book, and all those.
But you did learn in whatever that was, elementary school, I'm assuming, that there were Native Americans here before, right? Because you learned about them.
We did.
You learned about the indigenous people, and so you knew that they were here before.
Exactly. It was like, though, the chapter 1 was about the indigenous people, and then chapter 2 completely contradicted it by saying that Christopher Columbus was the first one to discover it. So I think there's something fundamental.
Well, that could have been a textbook, but I mean, like, you learned it in school. Like, I know people are talking about the, you know, school curriculum and, you know, how it needs to be changed. But as far as I'm concerned, we learned that indigenous people were here beforehand, and we learned that they weren't treated correctly. And we learned about the tears, and it was heart-wrenching to listen to. Exactly. And it was something that you remember and you just don't forget. You understand that there was true trauma in that, and that we didn't, you know, acquire the place in the most moral and ethical way. And that's something that, you know, maybe looking back, and had we, you know, if we can go back in time, we may be able to change somehow, if, you know, if the time machine comes around. I don't know, but
it's very undetailed and very unspecific, and they pretty much removed all the parts where in my textbook and in my curriculum when I was in elementary, where basically the bad parts of the story were completely cut, and I didn't get to learn about any of those until high school. And not because
you didn't learn about the long Trail of Tears that they.
Not until high school. They completely cut it out of my elementary curriculum, and I didn't learn about it till high school. Well, some of that stuff was in there in high school, but.
And I went to an Orthodox Jewish day school, where, you know, I mean, a lot of people go around talking about how, you know, our education is, you know, I mean, we learned about the indigenous people and the trials and tribulations that they went through. I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah, so I guess it's a matter of, you know, schools and textbooks, but, you know, I feel like, you know, I understand the idea behind the day, And it a little bit reminds me of, you know, how not too long ago we were going around to statues and deciding to cancel statues.
I think that could
Right?
be
Like,
done.
to me, that's what this feels like when you say that we shouldn't have a Christopher Columbus Day and we should have an Indigenous People Day. Like, to me, this just feels like canceling another person.
Now, my big thing on those statues is I don't know if they would necessarily need to be canceled, but I don't think they need to, like, for example, a statue of General Lee does not need to be displayed in the public square. You can put it in a museum and you can put an informational plaque about it there. You don't have to destroy the statue.
But why not keep it where it is?
Because they were put up, my big issue with them, they were put up after the Civil War by the governments of those countries. Some of these statues were not put up during the Civil War, they were put up after to remind people that even though we have equal rights, the Jim Crow laws are still here and things of that nature. The purpose of the statues was what bothered me.
But the purpose of the statue had the wrong purpose, right? But now the statue is there and times have changed and we have changed as people and evolved and learned and grown. And so it's learned and grown. But it's like a lot of people I know go to Auschwitz, right? Why do they go? They go to visit it. There's still remnants of the Holocaust that were there and they go to visit it. It's a piece of history that you don't take away, even though it has such painful associations with it, because it's something that you remember that, yes, there were hard times. There were times when we weren't doing as well as we are now. Same thing with America. There are times that we weren't as accepting and not everybody was as free as they are now. And I don't think you should take that away. I think it's a part of history. It's a part of, people should see it and understand that we don't want to go back there and we never want to make that mistake again.
Here's my thing. What if the entire community has decided we want to put this away and we don't want this to be displayed in our community?
I still think it's wrong. I do think the community, I'm a Republican in that sense, that I believe that the community should have the say. The higher government should not have the say, right? If a community decides they want to take down a statue, an entire community, it is your community, it's your right. You make it as beautiful or as ugly as you would want, right? Like, I genuinely believe that everybody, each community, town, as small as you can get, hamlet, they should decide what to do for their people in their area. So if a community wants to, go ahead. It's your community, do what you want. But if someone else wants to come in and take it out of your community, I mean, that's already pushing boundaries. But the idea of saying that, we should, as a country, be taking this down because it's wrong. I mean, it's history. It's a part of who we are. It's almost like, just not acknowledging bad things that we've done in the past, and then you never learn from it. You just keep growing and, or keep moving on, but never growing, never saying, I don't want to do that. We had them in the past, never again, right?
Definitely. Well, I think that the community only has control over the community city monuments and the state monuments. There are still federal monuments within the cities, but I don't think there are any, I do still think that even if there's a federal monument in the city, that the people in that city or that hamlet or wherever the federal monument is should decide whether they want it there or not. So, okay, that's interesting. So how would you do that? Would you somehow poll the citizens on what they want and go with the results of the poll?
So usually, I mean, I feel like that's a very modern day of doing things, right? Like, let's do polls and, kind of social media or whatever. But I mean, usually there's like an open forum in, a town hall or something, and everyone's invited. The problem is not everybody gets those information, those like headlines and stuff. And that's why you have organizations and, different political organizations and even third parties a lot of times help with these, where they'll put out information saying, hey, there's a town hall regarding this, which is relevant to what we do and we care about it. Let's show up and support or, go against it. But I think there should be a town hall like that. And I know not everybody shows up and it's kind of not accessible. And maybe we can make those more accessible. But at the end of the day, that's kind of our policy when we want to get a poll of what to do.
So instead, would you say that of the federal government deciding what to take away, they should say, okay, we're going to do this each community is going to do this. Each community is going to have a town hall and they're going to decide what they want to do individually.
I think if the federal government wants to put a statue in my town, put a statue there, give it to my, the mayor of my town or the smallest you know, depending on where I live, if I live in a city or whatever, the smallest level of government that you can give it to them to decide what to do with it. And now it's their responsibility. You've given a gift to a town, to a hamlet, to a city, right? Like, it's the federal government should not maintain, you know, responsibility over unless it's on the federal government property.
So if it's on federal land, then it's different.
Yeah, and because you know, I mean, there are certain parks that are federal parks, right? We do want to maintain a certain amount of, you know, of Greenland, and the federal government does have to monitor, you know, kind of the overall state of the country, but to the basics of, you know, who a statue. I mean, that should be the federal government's responsibility. It's me and my neighbors who have to see it every day. The mayor of my town can perfectly well take responsibility over it, and we can attend our town hall to decide what to do with it.
Oh,
Why does the federal government need to maintain control over that? Like,
No, I
give
actually
it
agree
to us. It's in our town. We're the ones taking care of it. Do you know how many people, you know, when they have like local monuments and stuff that they like and care about? There's so many videos I've seen of people who go and take care of it, right? They want to make their town beautiful. And so they'll go on Sunday, gather their friends, and they'll repaint fire hydrants or, you know, kind of do things to make their town beautiful. And if your statue's in your town and you're polishing it, it should be yours. It shouldn't belong to the federal government. They should have just given it to you, and now you decide what to do with it.
Absolutely. Now, we're pretty much, we're almost out of time here. We're at the 15-minute mark. And I think we're out of stories too. So.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot, you know, I mean, a lot going on, but also with the Afghanistan, that was like kind of something that we were talking about before, where, you know, they've been a little quiet, and you kind of don't know if that's good or bad, right? To some extent, you know, it seems like peace, and, you know, can we believe that or not, right? But if it would be, that would be a good thing. But on the other hand, the one thing I really, really don't like about the Taliban taking over, and that people just seem to be glossing over, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it, but it's like people have just been glossing over the fact that women are not treated correctly there. And I understand we should let them do what they want to do, right? And it's not our responsibility. But to some extent, like, you know, at the very least, it hurts me to see that, you know, women just aren't treated equally, right? Women are reporting that they're not allowed to walk out without a man, right? That's becoming a thing now there. The education, are they even allowed to get an education anymore? I don't believe they are. You know, and if they
They've separated the boys and the girls and have given them different curriculums.
Right. I think the girls' education is like really, really next to nothing. And I don't understand why all of the advocates, you know, who want peace, who want to help everyone in the world, why are they so quiet? What's going on? Do they not really care about what they say they care about? Like, why aren't we all screaming, someone please help these women who are under the control of the Taliban?
Well, there's a different way to do it. So right now, the Taliban wants to be recognized as a legitimate government, and they want to open up trade, and they want to do all these things, which means they don't have the upper hand in a lot of scenarios when they're negotiating with outside governments, because they're a brand new government. They don't have they don't have the upper hand. They're not a big, powerful government like the United States, or they're not even powerful like Canada. They're not that level. So when you're negotiating with them, with these trade deals, because they're going to come to the table for trade deals. There's no way they're going to be able to fully sustain themselves without coming to the table for trade deals. That's where you can probably get some concessions on these women's rights things and some things like that. You may not be able to get as much as you'd like, but you might be able to get something when they come to the table with your country for a trade deal, because they're going to come to the table, and then you're going to have the upper hand because you have the resources that they need.
Right. And I'm very, very much for, you know, religious liberty and liberty in general. Like, that's my big thing. I just want everyone to be happy and do what they want to do. Right. And the one thing that bothers me is I don't go so far as, you know, in kind of the whole idea with the women and the Taliban, I don't go so far as to say that they shouldn't be doing what they want. Right. They're saying this is a religious practice. Go ahead. Right. Like, you please keep your religion. Right. Like, do what you guys believe is right. Live a happy life. You know, but my problem is like the fact that they don't let people out, that they use fear factors so that people are caged in, right? There are so many religions in the world, and religions many times do things that people who are not religious or have a different religion don't agree with, and that's just kind of the
It's
way
a very
it is. With
complicated situation because
but
of
the
how
fear factor that they don't let women leave, that women are saying that they don't want to do this, but they can't not do it. That's the problem I have.
well, that's where I think when they come to the deal for trades, when they come to the table for something, that's where we can make the difference. Say, okay, you want this and this, you're going to have to change this and this, or you're not getting any of that. Because we've done that before with trade deals.
I hope it works. I really, really hope it works. Honestly, I don't see Biden putting a strong hand on them.
Biden may not, but
I
Biden's
don't
not-
see it happening. I don't see anyone in his administration putting a strong hand on them.
we're not the only country who's they're going to go to trade with.
But
And
we're the
that's-
most powerful country in the world,
That's
right?
true.
We have the largest influence.
That's true. They would have to.
So it is important that we come to them with a strong hand and we really take the right position on it.
That's true because
We
we
can't
could.
just put the blame on other, put the responsibility on other countries because it is on us. We took it already.
That's
We
true.
can't pretend it doesn't exist.
Plus, they already are being part of this. I think it's called the Silk Road Initiative with China, so they might not even need us anymore.
But that's a danger to us, right? If China becomes powerful, more powerful than we are, that is kind of a danger to our country, right? Like any country, if the United States is more powerful to China, it's a danger to China, right? Like every country wants to have the most influence because, if someone comes against you, you kind of have the upper hand.
That's true. So they may not. So again, the
So
Taliban.
the only thing that will happen with Biden not taking control, and this is the danger of Biden being president, is that we can lose our control, which could mean a risk of security for us.
Very possible, but we have. They may not. My worry is, yes, a trade deal may be the way to go, but they may not need us. The only thing they need us for, I'll tell you exactly what leverage that we have again on them right now. The only leverage we have is I think we have $10 billion that belong to the previous Afghanistan government that they want unfrozen. That's what we could probably use against them, the fact that we have their money.
But other countries also have their money, right? Countries generally, borrow and lend from each other. So other countries do too. And I think what I see coming forward is I think it's a matter of really how quickly each country can form their own allies. Because I think Taliban's going to try to do that. I think the Taliban, once they wake up, I think they might actually try to form allies with people, which will be very dangerous.
Well, they've allied with China as of now. They're part of the Something Road Initiative, which just means that China gets to go in and build them infrastructure, to my knowledge.
Okay.
But that
That's
also,
right. Like I don't know the extent of that relationship, how far that goes and how much that benefits China versus the Taliban, right? But it's not a good sign to have such a dangerous, volatile, unpredictable rulership gaining more power.
exactly. My problem isn't even well, yes, I don't like the fact that Taliban is the ruler, but my worry is the structure of the Taliban, because the Taliban that controls their federal government has little to no influence on the Taliban in each province. So the Taliban and the federal government, for example, agreed to give amnesty to all of our people, but the other parts of the Taliban did not agree to that. So they don't have to follow the initiative that their
It seems like there's a lot of chaos and not so much, a structured country.
It's
That's
not.
really, but what happens with that is, right, the people don't, if there's no structured country, where are the people going, right? The whole point of a government is really to protect us. If there's no structure, the people don't have a government to go to protect them at the end of the day.
And I forget, there's also warlords controlling different parts of the regions, and different Talibans who don't really report they don't report to anybody at the top, technically. And that's why when they gave amnesty to some of our people, I believe some of our people did get killed in certain regions because those regions don't report to the higher ups. Like, we didn't agree to that.
Right. Yeah.
So that becomes a problem because they need to get a handle on their other factions of their own group, because if they don't control the entire group, it's going to be very difficult for them to make any deals they can keep with any other countries. That's on them, though.
Right. Right. And I mean, they definitely need more transparency and honesty in what they do, right? Like that's something, if we don't trust them right now, right? Like we don't, and we shouldn't. They broke our trust, right? There's no reason for them to trust us. And so the question is like, if you want us to trust you, you have to rebuild that now. You have to regain our trust. And frankly, I mean, they don't seem to be having any interest in doing that, which is concerning.
They don't. The only effort they've made is, I believe, they've helped us deal with ISIS at the airport.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know much about that.
But that affected them directly too. So getting rid of ISIS at the airport directly benefited them, even though it helped us.
Right. Yeah,
Because
but I mean, the thing is, and the one thing I don't like about, you know, the whole idea of, even the idea of, you know, taking our troops out at once and kind of being so kind to them is that I am of the belief of like, you broke our trust, right? You killed hundreds of thousands of people, right? You have to regain that back now. We're not just going to blindly trust you, because honestly, aside from the fact that you keep breaking our trust and you keep, you know, telling us to trust you and then showing us that we can, and actions do speak louder than words at the end of the day. I'm sorry, but it's like we're blindly trusting them and they're not giving us anything. We just keep giving and they're not giving anything. And I think Trump tried to take a strong hand, and I wish Biden would do the same thing.
Well, yeah, that's true. Although Biden may
Because
not-
otherwise we'll take advantage, right? There are different types of people, different types of countries in this world. And the Taliban seems like one of those that will just take advantage the more you give.
very possible. Well, we're out of time here.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm gonna fade this out. So
All right. Thank you, everyone.